So this state, as you know, and this is the understatement of the year, is at a crossroads. You know that. The country is, the state is, and we are. Never has it been so important to have a conservative party. Never has it been so important to have a conservative voice. You know the condition the state is in. It is abysmal what one-party rule has done to this state. It is appalling that we are facing nearly a $50 billion deficit over the last 3 years. But I will tell you folks, the tide runs with us. The wind blows in our direction. You have got to believe that the people of New York are desperate for a change. And I'll tell you, some of these challenges are tough, but you've got to believe. I have believed my whole life. My father, who never was a big shot, he was never the governor of New York. He was the guy that called to pick up the visiting dignitary at the airport and bring him to the function or the rally or whatever it was. And one day my dad, Tony Lazio, got a call at his little auto parts store, and he said, Tony, can you go pick up the former governor of California? He's coming in. And so my dad, all excited, went to the airport. Ronald Reagan was there. No entourage, no security. Just came into the car. They had a grand old time as they drove out to the event out in Suffolk County. Told jokes, stopped by the side of the road, took a picture together, which ended up being hung in the Knotty Pine Den in my little Cape Cod house where I grew up. And my dad was so proud, so excited. He became a Reagan guy. The whole family became a Reagan people. I was a Reagan guy. Years later, my father had a massive stroke. It left him paralyzed on one side. He lost his speech. He was in the hospital. He went for rehabilitation. Finally, he came home. Wasn't sure he'd ever get home. He came home. And he was a little down. He lost his speech. He couldn't work. He couldn't walk. Well, this time I was in college. I just got into college, and I heard that Ronald Reagan was coming back across the country, barnstorming for president. So I came home one weekend and I thought, you know, he's coming out to Long Island. I'm going to get my dad there. He's in a wheelchair. So unbeknownst to my dad, I wrote a note to Ronald Reagan. In a million years, I don't know what I was thinking, saying, Dear Governor Reagan, you don't know me, and I'm sure you don't remember my dad. You met him but once, but he's been through this terrible setback, and he's a little blue. And he's a huge fan of what you stand for and what you believe in. And if you could somehow just acknowledge him, I know it would mean the world to him. And I put it in the hand of somebody that night that was going to do security. I said, just get it in the hand of someone doing advance. Try and get it to the stage. Try and get it to Reagan somehow, some way. And I left, went back to college, and that night I called. My dad went, answered the phone. I said, Dad, anything special happen? And he said one of the few words, no, and I knew. I was disappointed. I guess, you know, you take your best shot, it never happened. The next morning, the telephone rang at my home, and my mom picked up the phone, and the person on the other side said, Mrs. Lazio. And she said, yes. He said, this is Ronald Reagan. It breaks my heart to say that I didn't read this letter from your son until I was back on the plane heading to California. Would you hold the phone up to your husband's ear so I can tell him how much he means to the community? He's got to fight back, that we need him. He's got to be part of the turnaround of America. This is a man who was not looking for a press hit. This was a man who was doing the right thing for the right reasons. And in a million years, I don't know why back then I believed that that letter I wrote was going to end up triggering a phone call from Ronald Reagan to my father, which led to a handwritten note to me and my dad afterwards. But it's all about believing, folks. It's all about believing that the people that say it's impossible are wrong and that we're right. And so don't let people say to you that we cannot take back this state. You see what happened this past Tuesday? Do not let people say that we've got to live with reckless spending and corruption and scandal and budgets that are out of control and people and jobs and businesses that are fleeing the state. We do not. Just a few months ago, the people of New Jersey stepped up. There was a little-known candidate named Chris Christie who put his hand up. And people said he could not win in New Jersey. It was too corrupt. It was too democratic. He didn't have enough money. They made fun of his campaign. They made fun of his appearance. But guess what? On election day, Democrats and Republicans and conservatives and independents came out in droves, and they sent a message that the people were back in charge of New Jersey. Miles away, a few months later, a little-known state senator named Scott Brown raised his hand. Nobody knew who Scott Brown was in the bluest of blue states, the most democratic state in the nation. He ran a primary. The next day, after the primary was over, they had a press conference. One camera showed up. 9 weeks later, he was the United States Senator from Massachusetts. Why? That's right, you can plug for Scott Brown. I do. They turned to some liberal positions. It's not because they chose a Democrat. It's because they stuck with a Republican who ran against Obamacare, who said that the people of the state of Massachusetts deserve to have a senator that believes that terrorist masterminds ought to be treated not like criminals, not like common criminals, but by the enemy combatants that they are not to be tried in civilian courthouses. Rob Astorino's here. We did it in Westchester. We've done it in Nassau County. The people, time and time again, are trying to make the change. They're hungry for the change. They're hungry for our message. Let me tell you something. We're going to take it to them. We're going to show that we can turn this Empire State around. And people say that Andrew Cuomo is a shoo-in. They said that about Martha Coakley too. Bring him on, is what I say. Who as formerly Attorney General, would not take a position on behalf of the people of New York on Obamacare, that chose to side with Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid and not the people of New York? Is that what you want? No! Do we want somebody who turned his back and wouldn't take a position on the trial of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who self-describes himself as the mastermind of 9/11, that we're going to roll out the red carpet and give him all the rights and privileges and afford him the right to have Miranda rights and all the rest, just so he can beat the system and mock us? Is that the kind of person we want as governor of the state? No! Do you want someone that's going to continue this reckless spending, that's going to cave into the Democratic majority, that's going to continue to cave into the spending lobby, to the special interests that are ruining the state? No! A little bit louder, please. Hey, now I know you're alive. Because the people look out and they say, look at the ticket in 2006. Alan Hevesi, Elliot Spitzer, David Paterson, and Andrew Cuomo. Do you want 4 more years of that nightmare? I don't believe we don't want 4 more years of that. Let me tell you, people ask how we're going to beat Andrew Cuomo. I'm going to challenge the voters of New York. We're going to say to the people, if you like to open up your paper every single week and see scandal after scandal, embarrassment after embarrassment, investigation, resignation, if you like opening up the paper and reading about the fact that the budgets are out of control, that the special interests are in control, if you like opening up the paper and seeing more cases of people, jobs, and businesses fleeing this state, if you want to see our kids as the greatest export from this state, if you want to be embarrassed of New York for 4 more years, you will have a choice. It's called Andrew Cuomo. But my guess is you don't want that, do you? No! You want a governor that will take the tough positions, even if it means he can't get reelected, who will take on the special interests, who will drive down spending, who will shrink the state workforce, who will reform pensions. You want a governor who will lower taxes for the average working New Yorker, who will cap property taxes, drive down taxes on small businesses, will create jobs, will not view the business community as an ATM for the spending lobby, but rather as a partner for job creation, who will restore integrity. And election day, if you want that, folks, you will have a choice too. It is called Rick Lazio.